We're like coral animals embedded in a technological reef of extruded psychic objects. And the tool is the flying saucer or the soul exteriorized in three-dimensional space. It's, as James Joyce said, it's the problem of how man may be dirigible, right? And how man may be dirigible is basically by turning himself inside out. In other words, the body must become an interiorized hologrammatic object embedded in a solid-state hyperdimensional matrix, which is eternal, so that man wanders through Elysium in his body. This is a kind of Islamic paradise that I'm putting out here. Wanders through Elysium in his body, experiencing all the pleasures of the flesh, but not realizing that he is a holographic projection of a solid-state matrix that is micro-miniaturized, superconducting, and nowhere to be found. It is part of the plenum. And all history is about producing prototypes of this situation with greater and greater closure toward the ideal, so that airplanes, automobiles, condominiums, space shuttles, space colonies, starships of the hardware, speed of light, spin dizzy drive type, all of these are, as Mircea Eliade says, self-transforming images of flight that speak volumes about man's aspiration to self-transcendence, so that our wish, our salvation, and our only hope, basically, is to end the historical crisis by becoming the alien, by ending alienation, by recognizing the alien as the self, in fact, recognizing the alien as an overmind which holds all the physical laws of the planet intact in the same way that you hold an idea intact in your mind. In other words, all these givens, which are thought to be so rich in adamantine, are actually merely the moods of the God, if you will, which we happen to be. And the whole thing about human history is recovering this piece of lost information so that man may be dirigible. Or, again, to quote Finnegan's Wake, Moycane is the red light district of Dublin. Here in Moycane we flop on the seamy side, but up in the Ent, prospector, you sprout all your worth and you woof your wings. So if you want to be phoenixed, come and be parked. It's that simple, you see. But it takes courage to be parked when the Grim Reaper draws near. A blessing in disguise, Joyce calls him. So, to me, what psychedelics point out, and where I think society will go once they are integrated to the point where large groups of people can plan research programs without fear of being persecuted for it, is it models the after-death state. It may do more than model it. It may essentially reveal the nature of it, that our mind, what we each call our mind, can be, the modalities of appearance and understanding can be shifted so that we see it within the context of the one mind. And then problems like the existence of extraterrestrials and that kind of thing become trivial, because the one mind that I'm talking about contains all experiences of the other. All experiences of the other. There is not the Newtonian universe deployed throughout the parsecs and kiliocosms of physical space and the interior mental universe. They are the same thing. We perceive them as unresolvable dualisms because of what is called, or what I call a code, the quality of the code. Meaning the language we use to discuss this problem has these built-in dualisms. This is a problem of language. All codes have code qualities except the logos. The logos is perfect, and therefore it partakes of no quality other than itself. so long as you deal, so long as you map with something other than the logos, there will be code qualities. And the dualism built in to our language makes the death of the species, the death of the individual, these seem to be opposed things. Likewise, the problems biology and by extrapolation exobiology pose by examining the physical universe versus the angel and demon-haunted world that death psychology is reporting on is again set up as a dichotomy. All that is needed to go beyond an academic understanding of what I've been saying is to have the experience of this tryptamine-induced ecstasy. In other words, for reasons which I leave to my brother, the tryptamine molecule has this unique property of releasing the structured self into the overself. And each person who has that experience undergoes a mini apocalypse, a mini entry and mapping into hyperspace. For society to change in this direction, nothing is necessary except for this experience to become an object of general concern. Now, I'm not saying everybody should rush out and take mushrooms, in case you thought that's what I was saying. But I am saying that these fields of information, which I don't know if you're like me, but my experience of these things is basically literary. I read Plotinus, I read Heraclitus, I read all this stuff, and I try to integrate it intellectually. But it is a plane of experience that is directly accessible. And the role that each of us plays in relationship to it determines how we will present ourselves in the final transformation that this hints of. In other words, in this theory, there is a kind of teleological bias. There is a belief that there is a hyper-object called the overmind or God or what have you that casts a shadow into time. And history is the experiencing of this shadow. And as you draw closer and closer to the source of the shadow, the paradoxes intensify, the rate of change intensifies, because what is happening is that this hyper-object is beginning to ingress into three-dimensional space. One way of thinking of it is that the dream and the waking world and the world of the dream begin to become one. So that the school of flying saucer criticism, which has said flying saucers are hallucinations, was in a certain sense correct in that the laws which operate in the dream, the laws which operate in hyperspace, can at times operate in three-dimensional space when the barrier between the two modes becomes weak. And then you have these curious experiences, sometimes called psychotic breaks, sometimes called whatever, but which always have a tremendous impact on the person they're happening to because there seems to be an exterior component that could not possibly be mental. This, what I'm talking about, is when coincidences begin to build and build and build until you finally say, I don't know what is going on, but it's preposterous to claim that this is a psychological phenomenon because these are changes in the world, what Jung called synchronicity and made a certain model of. But what it really is that an alternative physics is beginning to impinge on reality. And it is the physics of light, essentially. Light is composed of photons. Photons have no antiparticle. This means that there is no dualism in the world of light. And if you try to imagine the experience from the point of view of a thing made of light, you realize, I'm sure you're all familiar with the conventions of relativity, which say that time slows down as you approach the speed of light. But what is never said about that is that if you move at the speed of light, there is no time whatsoever.